So something I've heard recent interviews with you about, and the topic on which you've been getting the most press recently, is a paper on what's so-called rapid onset gender dysphoria, a paper that you published with the pseudonymous author Susanna Diaz. Can you tell us a little bit about that paper and what you think are valid and invalid critiques against it?
So this paper has an interesting backstory, so I'll just spend a minute telling you. Susanna is the parent of a gender dysphoric child, and invited me and some other people to a very small conference on rapid onset gender dysphoria. I think it was in 2018. She presented preliminary data from a survey that she had started on the website Parents of ROGD Kids. I thought that the findings were interesting, and because almost nothing was known about rapid onset gender dysphoria, I encouraged her to publish her findings. We discussed subsequently over the next few months collaborating on the project, and ultimately we did. And this was a study of, I think it was 1,655 possible cases of rapid onset gender dysphoria. So these were parents who were surveyed on the website who believed that their child, and we limited it from, I think, between age 11 and 21. So they were adolescents or young adults, at least when they were first gender dysphoric. They believed that their child had rapid onset gender dysphoria, which is a hypothesized syndrome in which typically an adolescent, most often an adolescent girl, comes to believe falsely that they are trans or have gender dysphoria without any signs of ever having been gender dysphoric or in many cases even gender nonconforming in childhood. And this appears to be socially contagious. It often will happen that another or even several friends of the adolescent have also come out as trans around the same time. Until the past 10 years or so, it was very rare. And before 20 years ago, it just never happened that adolescence was the beginning of gender dysphoria for girls. It would sometimes happen for boys because that's autogynephilia. But for girls, it just didn't happen. So there has been one other major paper. The seminal paper was published by Lisa Littman in 2018. She got tremendous interest and also tremendous pushback for publishing this. And our paper is the first major follow-up or replication, and to the extent that we could, we replicated her findings well. The findings that are most important, and I'll go through quickly, are that parents said that on average, these kids had issues. They had emotional problems, including formal diagnoses. These issues preceded any indication of gender dysphoria by about 4 years. The biggest predictors of social transition, that is, the decision by the adolescent to change their pronouns, to change their look, to say that they're the other sex. The biggest predictors were having a history of mental and emotional problems. Also, seeing a gender specialist. That was the biggest predictor. And parents who visited the gender specialist with their child felt pressured, usually, to transition their child. And finally, when children did social transition, parents said that they deteriorated, they got worse off. There are other interesting findings, but those are the ones that I think that the activists who are going after this paper most dislike. And there is an attempt by some activists, including activists in the leadership of the organization International Academy of Sex Research, which until recently I was a longtime member, and who is associated with the journal where that was published, the Archives of Sexual Behavior. Fortunately, they don't own that journal. But
I'm surprised they're still linked, actually, because Archives is so willing to publish anything, that's sound, right? Whereas IASR seems to think that a controversial idea should not be published. And I did look at this letter from IASR. I mean, I was heartened that the pushback that I've seen on Twitter is mostly people who are defending you and Susanna, right?
Yeah, it's very sad. The IASR has long been a place for open inquiry, open discussion, and recently it's been going woke, along with virtually everybody, all the big institutions. Yeah. It's very sad to me, but you're right. Archives has remained a vital outlet by publishing anything that's mostly sound. And I should say that our paper isn't perfect empirically, and we don't say it's perfect empirically. And you show me a perfect paper in Archives, and we'll probably have to argue about it because there aren't perfect papers.
I was the one point that I thought was really well made is that activists are very happy to accept data from the parents of transgender youth who are enthusiastic about their children's transition, right? So what the claim that you make is that why should we say that the data from parents who are distressed about rapid onset gender dysphoria is any less valid than the data from parents who come from the opposite viewpoint, that they're excited, enthusiastic, or even encouraging of their children transitioning?
Yes, that's correct. And it's not that we're arguing that our data nail the case in favor of rapid onset gender dysphoria. We're just saying our data are also data that are useful and important to consider, and we should all discuss and do better research. And I'm open to both. We're, in fact, involved in a major study that's about to launch, in which we will be trying to recruit both parents and the adolescents with gender dysphoria, and parents regardless of their attitudes about their kids' gender dysphoria. And we'll be following them up over time. Also, I do want to say one more thing about Archives of Sexual Behavior and the editor, Ken Zucker. He likes discussion. He likes arguments. I've had 10. Zucker has published 10 different pieces criticizing my contributions. And yep. Initially, when I see these, I get annoyed because, first of all, who likes to be argued with or disagreed with? Second, it's going to be work for me to write a rebuttal. Nevertheless, this is good. This is good for the world of ideas and academic discourse.
Yeah, I agree. It's a healthy empirical ecosystem. A couple more things that I wanted to say. I was struck by with this ROGD paper is that in the paper, there's data about the political inclinations of these parents, which I think would go against what people think is the common wisdom. Tell me about if these parents, by and large, who have children who are transitioning are and who are distressed by it, are progressive or conservative.
These parents are overwhelmingly progressive. They go out of their way to say, because they don't want to be misunderstood, they're pro GLBT. A lot of them say, if I thought my kid was truly trans, I'd be right with them to help them
Yeah.
transition. But it's not my kid. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are just a few cases where parents mention something like it's not our religious belief or something like that, but that's a small minority of the parents who provided uh, comments.
And let's just back up. Tell us a little bit about what is rapid onset gender dysphoria and why are women uniquely, or young women or girls, uniquely susceptible to it? How has this manifested in trends in the past, decades?
Rapid onset gender dysphoria is the false belief that one is transgender, and it appears to be socially contagious, acquired by being immersed in a culture and a peer group that idealizes transgender and puts forward the idea that uh, being transgender can explain all your problems. Uh, Adolescent females appear to be the main vulnerable group, and it appears throughout history that adolescent females have been especially susceptible to social contagion. Go back to Salem and the witches. And then more recently, of course, we have back in the 90s, we have recovered memories of sexual abuse. Now, those are young women, those were not uh, adolescent females for the most part. These were mainly women in their 20s, at least the ones we know about, who were in therapy. And around the same time, overlapping multiple personality disorder. Uh, Now, why is it that young women are especially vulnerable to social contagion? Um, I don't think I have a good hypothesis. I think you are more likely to come up with one than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, women are more groupish. They have a greater sense of loyalty to one another, and women's friendships are. I just wrote something about this. In many ways, more fragile. So women are more interested in signaling loyalty to each other because their friendships are more tendentious. Males tend to have, although in this rapid onset gender dysphoria um, paper, you did show that young women and girls had more friends than who are transitioning than young men and boys, and it has to do with the friend group that somebody is embedded in. I heard you say that you don't think that young men or boys experience ROGD.
that's a little stronger than I probably said it. I probably said that I have my doubts, and that I
Yeah.
think in many of these cases, these adolescent boys who, and they comprised 25% of the sample that we just reported on. Many of these cases, these are autogynephilic teenagers who don't tell their parents, hey, mom, I'm really sexually aroused when I put on your panties and think of myself as a woman. Uh, and,
Yeah.
I know people who do, who treat, provide therapy to gender dysphoric youth. uh, at least one of whom is very knowledgeable about this. And he has told me that several of his natal male clients have told him as much, that, yeah, I, I have these feelings, and no, my parents don't know. My parents think that I'm ROGD or whatever. Now,
Mm.
is it possible that some natal males are also ROGD, in the sense that I believe it is likely that natal females are? Certainly possible. Has it been well established? No. I mean, really, nothing has been well established at this point. We are still in the
Mm.
infancy of this research. What is disturbing is that people are trying to shut down this discussion. This includes the ISR, who are trying to cancel this article. And
Yeah.
I just think, if I had to bet, I would bet ROGD is a thing. I would bet it's responsible for most of this huge increase in referrals for youth gender treatment. It's grown, let's say, tenfold over the past decade. I think that's mostly ROGD. Do I know? No. Let's cooperate and do good research together.